Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Aaron Eden. He's the co-founder and COO at Moves the Needle. He's also the host of Entrepreneurial Spirit in the Enterprise. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Well, and it's great to talk to another host of another podcast. It's always a lot of fun. It just sort of makes my job easier. And today, I think we've got a very cool topic that we're going to be talking about today, enterprise transformation. But before we get into today's topic, I'd love to hear a little about your background and what you at the team, your team at Moves the Needle is up to these days.
Absolutely. Yeah, so prior to co-founding Moves the Needle, I was actually an innovation catalyst for Intuit, and really my career went from software development, started developing at about the age of 12, moved into product management, then into HR, then university recruiting, leadership development, all over the place. And, that amazing career path wasn't because I was super smart or because I was special. It was actually because I was applying principles of lean innovation. The times when things went well, I was applying it well, and the times when I almost got fired are the times when I wasn't applying it well. Mm-hmm. So, really moves the needle. I co-founded with Brant Cooper about just over 3 years ago now. I guess it's been, while I was at Intuit, I trained roughly 2,500 employees on lean startup principles and connected those with design thinking. It drove tens of millions of dollars of business impact and boosted employee engagement scores and boosted net promoter scores on products. And Brant had been a mentor of mine through that entire process. And so he said, hey, you've done it in the enterprise at scale. I've written 3 books on the subject, one of them being a New York Times bestseller. Let's partner up. Mm-hmm. So here we are, roughly 3 years later. Really we see ourselves as innovation transformation architects. So helping to, implement the systems and build the capabilities inside the organization and really ultimately drive that cultural change, but doing it in a way that really empowers the organization to be self-sufficient and sustainable. So we should go in and do that work, help with reshaping the culture, bringing that entrepreneurial spirit into the enterprise, getting it to the point where it's self-sufficient, and we should back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, congratulations on your success. You definitely have a wide breadth of experiences and job backgrounds, which I think is very cool. And I also think it sort of, all of this speaks to why we're bringing you on the B2B Growth Show today to talk about this idea of enterprise transformation. So, maybe you can just sort of take it from there. Tell us where that starts and then where it goes.
Okay. It really, the starting point is highly dependent on the current culture of the organization. If you're sitting in a meeting with, maybe some people from sales, some people from marketing, some IT folks, and maybe you're hashing through some decision internally, if you get to a sticking point, there's somebody in the room that everybody sort of turns their heads towards, right? There's sort of a leading group in any organization. And so if you think about large financial services firms that are really trying to embrace this new digital world and reshape their companies, oftentimes that's the IT team, right? If, as an example, I've done a lot of work with many large telecom companies. Those telecom companies tend to be, not all, but tend to be driven by marketing. And so everybody will sort of go, well, what does marketing or branding say about this thing before we go and do it? that's probably your starting point. whatever that group is in the organization where everybody looks towards them, that's probably your starting point. And so you want to find, one individual in that area that's influential and open-minded to really looking at new ways the organization should be behaving, and use that one person as your starting point to really start building a group of advocates inside the organization. Thinking about your audience, being highly marketing focused and based, the marketing. There's a couple things that happen here. If you look at most enterprise change programs, the area where they fall down is that they don't market what they're doing internally, right? And meaning, hey, we just ran this hackathon internally, and here's some of the business impact that it had. It maybe they put a single blog post on their intranet, and that's the extent of it. But if you're going to drive change inside the organization, you have to behave just like a startup. You need to be out there showcasing the impact that you're having and helping that spread inside the organization. And so, these change teams really need to be their own marketing and PR teams internally. And then the second piece that I'd add that I think is really specific to marketing is that if I'm an innovation team and I'm trying to launch a brand new product or service, and I need to get the word out about that product or service to a small number of people, because this is something brand new, I don't want to blast it out to everybody, but I need to get that out in front of a few customers. Most marketing organizations today are really only set up to do the big marketing campaigns and not to support small startup and small innovation teams inside the organization that are trying something new. And so, if you think about the marketing department's customer is other employees inside the organization that are trying to grow their businesses around these different product lines. Marketing is primarily set up to support that type of activity, but in many cases is not set up to support the new initiatives and the brand new things, and not set up to help small teams be able to get in front of customers rapidly and really leverage the power of the marketing group. And so I think there's two really big meaty topics there that are areas where marketing really can exponentially speed up the ability for organizations to innovate, or the reverse, exponentially slow it down if they're only applying the big execution practices to the new products and services.
Right. Well, and I think that this idea relates to one of the key points of focus. One of the areas that we were going to touch on today was thinking big but starting small. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I already gave one example of it, right? Is that as you're thinking about cultural transformation and how do you transform your entire enterprise, maybe you've got 10,000 employees or 50,000 employees in that organization. Your end goal, yes, is to touch the hearts and minds of everybody in the organization and get them all behaving differently. And it's awesome to have that vision, but if you start by creating a program that's intended to go after every single one of those, the likelihood of failing is pretty high. Mm-hmm. And so, I commented at the beginning that if your starting point was marketing, you need to go in and get one person behaving differently. And then when that person is behaving differently, they will outperform the other people that are not behaving differently. Heads will start turning, right? People will say, oh, why is Joe over there outperforming the rest of his team? What's he doing differently? And then they'll start to pull that, and it creates really a groundswell of activity that then generates momentum internally, so that you can actually accomplish that big vision, which is to transform the entire organization. And it's this, if you think about the parallels to being an entrepreneur, as a startup, I don't need to go find 100,000 new customers as my first step. I've got to get one. I need one paying customer before any of that others even matters. And it's the same thing internally. It's how do I get one person behaving differently, and how do I prove that this really works inside my organization and does create the environment and the change that I'm after? Prove that internally, and then and then start to scale up as you have confidence that it really works.
Yep. You gotta get Joe on your side. It all starts with Joe. He's the one.
Exactly.
And so the second point that we were going to touch on was this idea that you don't want to prematurely scale. Like, what are some of the pitfalls that you see? What are some of the common mistakes then with businesses trying to prematurely scale?
Yeah, this is pervasive in every enterprise that I've ever worked with. You think about the mindset. I'm a large organization. I've got hundreds of thousands or millions of customers, right, globally. And so as a result of that, we think about how do we do things that scale across that entire customer base. And so we're paid all day long, every day to do things that scale. If something doesn't scale, we shy away from doing it, or we maybe even skip it completely. So that mindset, when applied to innovation and applied to cultural transformation and these other spaces where we have extreme uncertainty, building something that's scalable, if it turns out your customer doesn't care about that thing, is a huge waste of time. If your customer doesn't need it, then you just built something scalable that nobody's ever going to touch. So from that perspective, I think it's really important to understand that in the enterprise we have that mindset by default. And so the way that manifests itself is that, a team, maybe I'll go back to that Joe in marketing, our fictitious Joe in marketing that we're starting, right? What you probably would see is somebody going and working with Joe, and Joe's performing better, and now you've got Joe's team performing better, and you go, oh my God, this is incredible. Somebody gets inside the organization and says, oh, that's awesome. We need to now train everybody in the company as to how to behave like Joe. And they scale it across the organization. But the whole organization isn't like Joe. There's a bunch of customer segments inside your employee base. They don't all look like Joe. And so, you want to work yourself in that direction. Get Joe working differently, then get Joe's team working differently, then get his department working differently, and then go find another department and find a Joe in that department and start growing it from there. You have to very methodically increase the scale as your confidence level that it works for everybody increases. And so it's very difficult inside I say inside the enterprise, but I think probably a good portion of it is actually human nature. Mm-hmm. We get excited, right? We see that something works and we go, oh, great, go, right?
Yeah, more of that, yeah.
I catch myself doing it inside Moves the Needle, where we're working on something and I teach this stuff and still will get excited about something and start wanting to scale up or add features before I've proven that the customer actually cares about those. And so, I think to that end, everybody needs a good coach. You see even Olympic level athletes, they've got a coach. And I catch myself skipping past and prematurely scaling. So having somebody that's there and watching out for us behaving like excited humans, and saying, hey, is that the right thing to do? If it is, great, do it. But if not, then let's slow ourselves down a little bit and make sure it's going to work in this other context.
Yep.
So,
makes a lot of sense.
Should have a big vision, and it should keep people excited. But you have to start small and work your way toward that vision. It's not prove it once and then jump to the vision. There's a lot of steps along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And this third point that we are going to touch on during today's episode, behave like a product leader. Tell us kind of what that means.
Yeah, I hit on that a little bit, right? In that if I've got an internal change initiative, I can, actually, you know what? Why don't I'll use my career journey as an example for that. So one of the reasons that I got pulled into university recruiting and leadership development and working in HR as a product manager was exactly that. I was actually I was the first product manager inside of HR at Intuit. And the reason for that was that the leadership started realizing that, oh wait, as HR, we've got to set up products and services. We've got these trainings that we do. We recruit new employees, whatever. We have that set of products, and our customer is employees inside the organization. And so the reason I was able to be successful in those areas is I went out, I understood the target customer, understood what they needed, figured out how to design experiments and things to prove that actually created value for them, and then continue to build that up. I commented on it with my marketing example as well, right? That the marketing team has a set of products and services that they offer for employees that help those employees market their products and services. And so they need to make sure that satisfies the needs of the entire organization, and that continues to evolve as the organization evolves.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Now, do you think we can sort of squeeze in one last example featuring Joe? Can we do that? Is there any way to do it, to bring Joe back into this?
Sure. Where would you like Joe?
I mean, Joe's in, well, we'll put him in marketing, Joe's in marketing. Right. How does Joe behave like a product leader?
Yeah, so Joe needs to look at the work that he or Joanne maybe, he or Joanne are doing inside the organization, right? I am Joe. I'm responsible for social media marketing campaigns for XYZ product, right? If that's my responsibility, who are my customers? Well, I've got a manager, on one product. I've got another manager on another product. They are my customers. I also have the customer that's outside the company, right, that I'm trying to attract through the social media. And so I need to understand that customer. And my role as Joe is to interconnect those needs and understand how do I attract the right customer that then drives the right business metric that the manager internally is being held responsible for. And how do I support that? So it's me as Joe gaining deep empathy for each of my different customers and understanding what's important to them, and then how I connect those dots, and learn my way into a high impact social media marketing campaign or whatever the example might be. But it's really me understanding my customers and understanding how I can drive the biggest impact for them, and understanding that as a marketing professional, the customer outside the company that pays the bills is not the only customer that I solve for. I have multiple customers.
Perfect. Makes a lot of sense, Aaron. Aaron, I think this has been some tremendous content. I know for a fact that our listeners are going to get a lot of value out of it. If anyone listening wants to connect with you, though, after the show, or find out maybe a little bit more about what you and your team at Moves the Needle are up to, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Sure. Our website is movestheneedle.com. I am active on almost every social media platform, so I'm usually Aaron Eden anywhere strung together. So Twitter at Aaron Eden, LinkedIn Aaron Eden. So pretty easy to find that way. If Google doesn't help you, then I'm doing something wrong.
Right on. Aaron, thanks again so much. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
To ensure that you never miss an episode of the B2B Growth Show, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device.
If you'd like to connect with B2B executives from all over the world, make sure to join our private Facebook community. There are some incredible conversations happening inside this group. To join, visit b2bgrowthshow.com/FB.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.